So it's become a tradition in the comic book shelves that Marvel Comics around the beginning of the year puts out a weird kind of oversized preview book showing what's up and coming for Marvel Comics in the next year. And these books are always the same. It's always a showcase of characters and creators, usually a loosely woven together narrative featuring a bunch of Marvel characters and somehow dropping hints to whatever major story events or major storylines are coming in the year to come. So this year was no different, and the offering they gave us this time was Timeless. But what makes Timeless a bit different is it seems like they actually took the time to give us a pretty damn good comic book in their little preview edition. So I figured, well, I rant and rave every time the comic book industry is losing readership and going off track. So I really should call mention when I think they've done something really right. So here's my review of Timeless. This book is written by Jed MacKay with art by Joe Bennett, Kev Walker, Greg Land, and Mark Bagley, respectively. So the book is pretty much revolves around Kang the Conqueror, the Marvel time-traveling villain. And he comes across this modern-day historian named Dr. Petrov. And Dr. Petrov is writing a book on the superhero and supervillainy of the 20th and 21st century. And in his book, he's going to go on to say that the most influential villain of this time was Victor Von Doom, which Kang takes a bit of affront to. And so he invites Dr. Petrov to come with him as he takes him through time and allows him to observe the effect that Kang has had both behind the scenes and very overtly on affecting the timeline and his influence as a villain as a whole, afraid that this book is going to stoke Doom's ego beyond all recognition. So he takes him through from the Ice Age, the Egyptian Empire, kind of showing his strengths and weaknesses and what he's done to alter the timeline when Kang's equipment starts picking up an anomaly. He calls it a pirate timeline, this vagrant timeline rushing through the space-time continuum, kind of cannibalizing everything in its path. And so he cuts the tour short and goes to his time citadel. And this is where we're kind of treated to the preview of what's to come as Kang is looking in the year ahead, and we see the garbage Punisher up there in the top right corner fighting with the Hand. Looks like Winter Soldier is going to shoot Captain America. Lots of just things to look forward to in Marvel Comics. But this is really short and sweet, and then we get back to the narrative of this pirated timeline. And it's at this time that Kang and Dr. Petrov are attacked by a group of Deathlocks. And Kang reveals that Deathlocks are kind of like the shock troops that enforce random timeline variants. And so he fights them off. They escape the Citadel, and they end up getting themselves into this pirate timeline, as Kang calls it. Once there, they see that this is just a horrible dystopian world where pretty much all life has been destroyed, and there's one life form remaining that Kang believes to be a Doctor Doom, who's somehow using science or mysticism or something to keep his timeline going at the cost of sacrificing other timelines in its path. So he sets off to find the Doom and finally confronts him. But once he gets there, he realizes that this isn't Doom at all. This is Reed Richards in Doom's armor. And Reed Richards has ripped his own eyes out of their sockets and replaced them with the Infinity Stones time and reality. So he's using the stones now as his primary sensory apparatus, and he's using the power of the stones to keep his timeline alive and feeding it other timelines to keep it going while he tries to address what it was that killed his timeline. So this was an awesome story. It was a lot of adventure, a lot of cool sci-fi, and a really good glimpse into Kang's character. And I think it's a really good study on how to write a villain in a comic book, as far as if you want the book to be centered on that villain. At no point does it try to make Kang heroic, does it try to even really make him the lesser of two evils. His original motivation in the storyline is he's personally offended that he isn't regarded by this historian as one of the greatest villains of all time. And then it's only acting in his own self-interest that he's going to go defeat this errant timeline and attempt to save the reality that we know, the Marvel 616. So it's just very cool. He is ruthless, cunning, and evil. And this poor Dr. Petrov, who really thought he was getting the opportunity of a lifetime to be able to, spend time with Kang the Conqueror, the subject of his lifelong research of supervillains, and it turns into this just bizarre, crusade against this errant cannibalistic timeline. And it's really just a good example of, you can do your little showcase book like this book was meant to be, but at the same time, you can put a compelling story and make people want to buy it. I'm seeing that this book on eBay is actually scored up some value for itself, especially the variant covers. There's a variant cover that has the little time clock character from the Loki series that seems to be pretty valuable. But I just have the basic cover, the one shown here in the image. And I really enjoyed this book. I thought it was cool. I don't want to spoil how it resolves and what happens, and even all the revelations of what's to come that Kang talks about as far as the future of the Marvel Universe. But I thought this book was worth a read. If you can find one at your comic shop and it's still at a reasonable price, I'd really recommend picking it up, or even just pick up the digital copy. Story's really good. Artwork is stellar. I mean, you got Greg Land, you got Mark Bagley. I know a lot of folks don't like Greg Land's artwork for one reason or another. I think he's still, a pretty sharp artist. I'm not going to not buy a book because he's on it. And Mark Bagley is, I still think, probably the class of Marvel's current stable of creatives right now. So definitely, if you want a book to look good, they're going to put Mark Bagley on it. It's going to look awesome, and this one does. His layouts, his panel work, all of it's just great. It's a well put together book, and that's not something you see a lot in comic books today. You don't see a lot of books that are just a well put together book, a book that tells a good story, that has good artwork, featuring good characters, and really drawing on the lore of the Marvel Universe as a whole to be able to craft this narrative for Kang, who's this time-spanning villain. So definitely worth a read. I hope you guys check it out. And if you have read it, go ahead and let me know in the comments below what you thought of it. Did you enjoy it? Did you not like it? Did you kind of just see this as another one of those flash in the pan, here's what's coming up in Marvel the next year kind of books, as really that's what it's meant to be. But I don't know. It just felt like they put a little more effort into it this time, and kudos for them. I was happy. I enjoyed this book. So let me know in the comments below what you thought about it while you're down there. Please hit like and subscribe. Help the channel grow. We've been growing steadily over the last few years, and I really, really appreciate all you guys who tune in and listen to me talk comics, on a daily or weekly basis. And I think we're just going to leave it there. So have a great day, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye.